And what's interesting, and we mentioned this on a few other of the career podcast, is there tends to be a neurotransmitter clustering effect that happens in these quadrants, or attractive effect. So, for example, the dominant testosterone-driven subtypes, and this is across all subtypes, by the way, not just INTJs. This is a pattern, but this applies to INTJs. Dominant subtypes, no matter what personality type you are, tend to be attracted to and want to spend time around harmonizing subtypes of any of the 16 personalities in the Myers-Briggs system. So if you're a dominant INTJ and you find yourself, attracted to want to be friends with or connection with maybe a harmonizing ESFP, like that would make sense because you're attracted, the testosterone and estrogen are attracted to each other. When we get into the creative though, the dopamine chasers, the creatives, tend to be attracted to other creative subtypes, again, across all types. And the normalizing serotonin-focused people, they also are clustered around, like to spend time with people of like minds that are also serotonin-wired normalizing. They don't like to cross over as much. So you're going to see in a creative world, a lot of creatives, no matter their personality types, clustering together, a lot of normalizing serotonin chasers clustering together, and then estrogen and testosterone dominant and harmonizing, often attracted toward each other. Again, outside of romance or anything like that, it's just these attractors tend to influence us. So you can look around at the people that you associate with too. If you're trying to find out what kind of subtype am I? Well, are you attracted to other people of like minds? Maybe you're seeing a clustering of your subtype creatively, let's say, or maybe I'm a creative. I'm around a lot of creative subtypes. Maybe that's where I'm at right now in my life. The other thing that we can talk about is not only does the way you're naturally wired, like let's say you're an INTJ, you're an INTJ, you're an INTJ. It's the song, the musical notes on the sheet. Each of these subtypes is a performance of your INTJ nature. It's an expression of how you are as an INTJ showing up. So it's just the flavoring. It doesn't mean your wiring is different. They're not static. They can shift and change over time. So you can lean into the different aspects of yourself and you can be more one of these subtypes than you were before. Now, the ability to do that, though, requires you to grow and develop the other aspects of either the analytic or the holistic attunement of your functions. Not only do your natural proclivities indicate which career you choose, but also which career you choose will start to wire you toward the subtype that career lends itself to. So if you're a dominant INTJ and you pick a creative career, you're going to start becoming more expressed as a creative subtype. And the other thing is you can't jump, right? You want to talk about you can't jump the quadrants?
Well, it's much more difficult to go sort of, what is that? Diagonally than it is across, down, or up. So if you imagine these as 4 quadrants with dominant in the top left, creative in the top right, normalizing in the bottom left, and harmonizing in the bottom right, it's much easier for, say, a normalizing INTJ to visit either harmonizing or dominant. Or when I say visit, I mean like develop those qualities and characteristics over time.
Yeah.
Than it is to go from normalizing to creative. And usually you have to travel through one of those. And when you look at the either analytic or holistic preference for the functions that you're using the most, then it makes sense that you're going to primarily focus on expanding the territory of one or the other at the same time and not both. That's a heavy lift, right?
Yeah.
If you're changing your introverted intuition or perspective preference from analytic to holistic, and the same thing with extroverted thinking from holistic to analytic. It's hard to do those things simultaneously. So usually a way to get to the other side of the diagonal is through the corners, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're dominant that would like to experience harmonizing, well, do you want to get through, there through creative, or do you want to get there through normalizing? Which one do you want to work on first? And it's not uncommon for people to say that they identify with all 4 subtypes. If you're at an age where you've had a lot of careers, you've had a lot of experience, you've done a lot of things in your life, you probably have dipped into all 4 of those at some point. You've had to bring those qualities and characteristics up just to survive or respond to the environment. So over time, I think we do, unless our situation or circumstances are limiting or really force us to stay in the lane.
Yeah.
I think most of the time, there's at least a couple of those subtypes that we identify with and can track through a timeline. I think I was a little bit more creative during that time period in my life. Or maybe when I had this job, I was in my more dominant energy. That's very common for people to have that experience. I think what's nice about this information, though, is if we're missing some characteristics or qualities that we'd like to have, and they are actually natural to us, they just require us to use our functions in a slightly different way, then we can choose a career path or maybe even hobbies, the things that we'd like to do that are more in alignment with those qualities and characteristics, and our brain wiring will follow, right? Like we'll find ourselves building the traits we need in order to match the position. Yeah. And now we gain those qualities and characteristics. It's not to say that it's easy. It's usually a stretch, but that's what growth is. And so knowing how these dynamics show up can help us make smarter choices, right? If I want to get more gain, more return on investment for my hard effort, maybe as a creative INTJ, I need to dip into or start visiting a more dominant space, because dominant INTJs tend to do a little better financially. So maybe I need to get that under my belt. Otherwise, I'm leaving money on the table, both literally and figuratively. And so maybe I need to step into that for a while. Or maybe I have entered a space where I need to be more harmonizing, right? Like I need to be more of a specialist and really figure some things out. And maybe I'm using it in a career that's more designed for counseling or, psychoanalysis or therapy. Maybe that's the time or a space I need to enter for a while to figure some stuff out. It gives a map. It gives waypoints or maybe lily pads along the path where I go, okay, I think this is what's next for me. And now I'm not flying blind. Now I can watch myself go through all of these cycles in life and develop some of the characteristics and traits that are available to me or to the person listening as an INTJ that they might not have known is actually natural to their type.
Yeah.